Welcome back to Ask Eddie. I'm Eddie Muller. I am here with Ann Hockens, Director of Communications for the Film Noir Foundation. And you people are keeping us hopping. There's so many questions that come in that what started out as a once a month thing, it wasn't even going to be once a month. It was going to be like quarterly.
Yeah.
We had no idea that we were going to get so many questions. And so the once a month fell by the wayside because this will be the third installment in January of Ask Eddie. And now, as I have noted previously, it's now Ask Eddie and Ann, which is fantastic. So I could not convince Tizzy to come and participate in tonight's episode. Sooner or later, she's going to make an appearance, but she got her full ration of cuddle love that she needed about 30 minutes ago. And then she's just like, okay, I'm good now. And then she just wandered off to sleep on her heating pad, so she's good. Yeah. So we're going to see appearances from Charlotte and Milo and Emily. They're all going to appear tonight, do you think?
I don't know. Emily, when I made the bed, decided she wanted to sleep under the Afghan. So she's been there since then. Charlotte's peering at me from the hallway, and I have no idea where Milo is. But he has.
Right. Well, we love it when they make surprise appearances. It's funny, now that I have this set up here, I always imagine, there's this doorway back here behind me, and now I'm starting to think it's like a horror movie where they're waiting for like Mike Myers to come through the door, while I'm on camera. Like I'll be talking and I won't be aware of it, and then this figure will like appear out of the shadows.
See a little white face.
Yeah, it won't be Tizzy though that appears, because she can't even get up the stairs. I'm upstairs in my house and she can't even climb the stairs. She's so challenged. So anyway, Ann, I have had a great week, an incredibly busy week, but filled with really great stuff. So I'm kind of psyched. I was dead tired yesterday, but I'm very psyched tonight. So let's get to it.
Okay. Well, I think first we should talk about our current matching fund drive for the Film Noir Foundation, if you want to do that.
Well, yes, our fabulous friends and patrons, Jay and Connie, have told us that if we receive $1,000 worth of donations before the end of January, they will match that with a $1,000 check, and that's still open. Yes. We're still looking for we're always looking for donations.
Yes, this is ongoing, just so everybody knows.
It's an ongoing thing. But yes, it would be wonderful, and it would be especially wonderful if Jay and Connie were not the only people to suggest such a thing. Corporations do that all the time. We get some wonderful donations. People who work at companies who get their employers to who have such a program to do a matching grant thing through their work, and we have benefited from that on many occasions, and that is terrific. But it can also be done privately, not through a corporation, and so that's terrific as well. It's a challenge because without the festivals and everything this year, it's hard to do these donation drives. And when we get together, we just like to talk and have a good time and answer people's questions and not pass the hat. But we do need to do that because we're not making much dough, with the theaters closed. So please, you can donate, through our filmnoirfoundation.org. There's a contribute page.
Yes.
And you can do that through PayPal, or you can send a check or whatever. You can find, if you go to that site, filmnoirfoundation.org, you will see on the contribute page where you can send a check, or you can just do it through PayPal.
And also, so people know too, that the information on corporate matching is also on that page. So if you're interested in setting something up with your workplace, then there is the contact information is there, and the address for mailing checks is there as well.
Okay, terrific. Very, very good. Tonight I am drinking one of my new favorite libations. This is a Joan Blondell cocktail.
Nice.
Created in Havana in the 1930s in honor of Joan Blondell.
Nice. I'm drinking mint tea.
I drank my mint tea earlier today when I was paying my bills and watching football.
Well,
okay, let's get it rolling. I'm eager to get into these questions.
Okay, I recently saw TCM's Going Attractions, the definitive story of the movie palaces, and didn't notice any mention of the Castro. Can you share any history or tales of the beautiful Castro Theatre, home of Noir City, and her restoration? And that's from John Chamberlain.
Okay, John Chamberlain. Well, I can't share as many stories of the Castro beyond, my own history at the theater. That's, I went there when I was a teenager. I saw movies there back in the 70s and was always a patron. But then in 2003, when Anita Manga, who was the programmer there, invited me to do Noir City at the theater, I started my own personal history with the place. But it's a, I never write anything about the theater without prefacing it with the word majestic. And it was built, I believe, in 1922 by the Nasser brothers, who were from Central California. I believe there's a lot of Nasser guys, but they're interesting, and because they not only built theaters, and it's a Timothy Pfluger designed theater. He was quite a prominent theater architect specializing in theaters. It was not exactly in the spot. The theater itself was not aligned the way it is now when it first opened. I know that. But they also got into film production, and there's some interesting movies that I've shown both at Noir City and on Noir Alley on TCM that were produced by one or more of the Nasser brothers. If you've seen Lured, the Douglas Sirk movie with Lucille Ball, yeah, Theodore Nasser was one of the producers of that film. I believe it was Theodore. There were several Nasser brothers. They were like the Warner brothers, but they started in theatrical exhibition and then moved into film production and such. The family still owns the theater. It is still, and now, children of the original owners and now grandchildren of the original owners sort of have control of its future. And we certainly hope that it remains a single screen movie theater, although obviously there are challenges to that these days, but
I know. That's one of the things with everything being shut down is really scary about wondering how many cinemas are going to be able to still survive.
Yeah, I know. It's an
economic situation.
It is a real challenge. This is a very real thing. I don't think, Anne, we have ever been at a time in cinema history that has been fraught with so many challenges. Not only just will theaters survive, but I may as well start off tonight by just saying, everybody asks, what are your plans for 2021 with the Noir City festivals? And, has anything progressed from the last time we talked about this? And, I just have to say, it is proving to be a real challenge because of the advent of streaming has really affected everything, because we're just seeing all of the studios who own the movies are sort of reconsidering what they want to do. And just this week, the program, because I have put together a program for the next Noir City Festival I want to do. I thought I was going to do it live. That all changed. But then it's like, well, now we'll just do it online, since it was very successful when we did that with the AFI back in November. But those were international films. And showing the Hollywood films, and I really wanted to do a program of mostly American movies, it has become a real challenge because the studios don't know if they want to do their own streaming thing, because now that everybody is going online, right? Disney Plus, HBO Max, Netflix, Amazon, you know, all these outfits have their own streaming. And then this week, I just learned that there's now Paramount Plus, and Paramount is doing its own at-home streaming service and could very well reserve Paramount movies for that service. So we don't know. We just don't know. It hasn't been easy to get the studios to commit to any kind of streaming deal, because they don't know exactly how they want to proceed at this point. So we're working on it. Trust me. I mean, I programmed the festival. Anita is trying to book the films, and when we talk on the phone, I can feel the exasperation in her at what is transpiring. So we'll again keep our fingers crossed and hope. You know, this is what happens when the paradigm shifts and the business goes into a new model. And you know, we're all about preserving these films for younger people, so that people are still interested in watching them. That's the whole game. And I just don't want any of these decisions that the studios make to include, well, we don't really need to show these old movies anymore.
Yeah. You know, and
that's it. I have to get on my soapbox every time, Ann, and make that statement for new viewers, but there you have it.
No, I mean, that's always been my concern since, you know, video stores went by the wayside. And I know people really like streaming because, oh, it's great because I can get whatever I want. It's like, no, you really can't get whatever you want. And, you know, with the video stores, you know, we had a physical copy, so you could always get it even if it went out of print or whatever. And, you know, in a lot of ways, there's really a lot less content available if your interest is in classic films compared.
Very true. Isn't it odd that I don't think there's ever been a time in our history when there has been a broader and deeper interest in classic films than there is now, which has been wrought largely by their availability in digital media. But it's weird then that these studios now with streaming, it actually squeezes off the availability of these movies, because the people who own the films also own the distribution channel again, like they did before 1948 when the antitrust legislation prevented that from happening. Now it has happened again, and nobody is saying anything about it. You know, it's like accepted that that's the future, right?
Yeah.
So it's tough because theaters were owned by independent operators, right? And they would buy the product from the studios. But when the studios will own the product and the delivery of the product and the way you can see it, that limits your opportunity or limits, your options for seeing these films. So let's just say we're watching the situation closely. Okay, let's move on. I don't want to depress people with too much of that talk.
Okay. Do you know of a noir or any film, black and white, probably 40s or early 50s, that involves a kidnapped little girl who is hidden inside a marching drum in a parade and rescued at the climax of the film? Ring any drums for you, Aaron St. John.
Wow. Okay. A little deaf girl, I guess, because after being hidden in a drum, I can't. And wouldn't the drummer kind of know that there was somebody in the drum? I don't know.
I don't know.
I have to say this does not immediately ring any bells, but we have people who are loyal watchers of this who may know what that film is. So I have filed that away. If it comes to me, in the course of our conversation. I'll blurt it out, but I don't think it's going to. But if anybody out there knows about this weird movie with the girl and the drum, please, by all means, let us know.
Okay. I've been to quite a few of your festivals and faithfully watched Noir Alley. I'm curious why Sunset Boulevard is rarely mentioned. Do you not consider it a film noir? Is it too mainstream? Are the production values too high? I took the class on film noir a few years ago, and it certainly met the criteria. I guess I'd just like you to feature it on Noir Alley so I could hear your take. Roger Salzberg.
Okay, Roger. No, I do consider it to be a film noir. In fact, it's in my top 5. But I don't know why people don't consider it a film noir. It has so much of a noir feel, and Norma Desmond is a femme fatale in a way. And, you know, it has the great voiceover narration, and, you know, it's a film noir to me, without question. I'm not sure why people, because it's a movie about movies, I think that's primarily the way people look at it. Like, it's a film about Hollywood, and it's and they don't really see it fitting into any noir mold. I mean, do you think it's a noir, Anne?
I've always thought it was a film noir, and I've been surprised when I've seen people say it wasn't. And I'm not really sure why that is, because, you know, I've even seen that like about Mildred Pierce. Also, which I really do not understand. Yeah, I mean, I've always considered it a noir. It's just the noir set in Hollywood.
Yeah, and there's a lot of film noir movies where writers are the protagonists.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, that same year, In a Lonely Place came out.
Yeah.
And in my book, Dark City, the last chapter features those 2 films, In a Lonely Place and Sunset Boulevard, because they're Hollywood films. And at the end, you know, spoiler alert, I say, you know, it should come as no surprise now that Dark City is Hollywood. And it talks about these films. And I have a funny little bit where I say that I imagine Dixon Steele, right, the Humphrey Bogart character in a Lonely Place, like opening his morning paper to see the story of Joe Gillis's death on the paper. And it's like, you know, fated star kills writer. And I could just see Bogart, you know, laughing at that, you know, what a hack, what a screw loose guy to take that job, you know? So yeah, I definitely consider it a film noir.
Okay, my name is Adam, and I am new to film noir. I got a book called Film Noir, and inside the book, it ranks the 50 best noirs. In this list are Rear Window, Vertigo, and Psycho. How can these be considered noir? Would love to hear your thoughts on this.
The old, if it's Alfred Hitchcock, it can't be noir. Yeah. Again, not that I'm plugging my upcoming re-release of Dark City, The Lost World of Film Noir, but there is like a whole chapter in the book that explores this very subject, right? And there are certain Hitchcock films that are more noir than others. I mean, North by Northwest is not a film noir. To Catch a Thief is not a film noir. But Shadow of a Doubt, Strangers on a Train, I Confess, The Wrong Man, Rear Window to some extent. I mean, I talk about it because it was written by Cornell Woolrich, and I write a lot about Cornell Woolrich in the book. And I also consider Psycho to be a film noir to a point, and everybody knows exactly what that point is.
Yeah.
But that's it, you know. I mean, I just think thematically the story is what makes it noir or not in the case of these films. And the fact that Hitchcock was always interested in guilt, a major theme in noir. He's interested in the duality of people's character. That's a big theme in film noir. He's interested in fate and coincidence, and that's a big theme in film noir. So the times that he applies those to those themes meld with a story in which the protagonists are guilty of something, right? Or at least think they're guilty of something, which is another big theme in Hitchcock movies, then those films definitely do feel like noir to me. And but they're all Alfred Hitchcock movies, but there are certain Alfred Hitchcock movies that I think qualify as film noir.
Do you think Vertigo is a film noir?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in fact, my mind has kind of changed on that, because when I first wrote that book, I did not include anything about Vertigo in the book. And in this edition, there's a whole extra thing in the Hitchcock section about Vertigo.
It is kind of a technical prop issue. Handguns play a central part in film noir and in most crime and mystery films. Usually the guns are automatics, but characters habitually refer to the murder weapon as a revolver. This was the case in at least one of Bogey's movies as well. A revolver with a cylinder is never part of these films I am referring to. Have you noticed that? I'm curious if the reason for such elementary mistakes. It occurs in many films. It's obvious to anyone the least bit familiar with firearms, and certainly to those who are in charge of the props. Perhaps I am too critical.
Perhaps. Who sent this question in?
Dave.
Okay, Dave. I have a funny feeling that Dave is like a gun fan, like a gun collector or something. I don't know. But I haven't actually noticed that. I get what he's saying there, but I haven't noticed these that it's a chronic mistake in these movies. And I can attest that unless it's a super low budget B movie where the prop department is sparse and the script says revolver and they only have an automatic, and then it comes out and they don't bother to change it, I could see that happening. But quite honestly, these prop departments were incredibly sophisticated, and every studio had a reference department and everything, and people whose job it was they did nothing but go through a script and collect all the props and made sure that they were the correct props. So I know if the script called for an automatic, they would get an automatic. If the script called for a revolver, it'd be a revolver. At least if it was an A picture at Paramount, right, or MGM or something like that. It was a B film, they might just grab whatever was on hand because they didn't care. It was like, we got to shoot this. We're shooting it right now. Let's just do it. So I figure that Dave has probably seen a few of these B movies where they've made this mistake. Yeah. But I don't think you're going to see that, in a top line production. If Dave can cite the actual mistake, like the film where this mistake is made, I'd be interested in knowing.
Okay, I'm a fan of vintage prefabricated diners and always enjoy diners in old films. I was wondering if Eddie knew of any noirs that feature diners. I've seen Detour, Dark Passage, and The Killers, but I was curious what other film noirs feature scenes in a diner. And this is from Chris.
Oh, Chris. Well, Chris obviously has to read the last issue of the Noir City e-magazine, where Nora Fiore, the great nitrate diva on Twitter, I am so happy to have Nora contributing to the magazine now, because she is phenomenal. She is just a wealth of information and a really, really good writer. And she did this fabulous piece that was like a faux travel piece set in the 40s, written by a salesman who does nothing but eat in diners. So it's a collection of all the best diners in noir. It's like a photo essay of all the best diners in noir. And so, of course, The Killers, the 1946 version of The Killers, which starts in the diner and has, the killers going in and holding the counterman and the chef hostage while they're looking for the Swede. There's a great diner in Gun Crazy where Peggy Cummins and John Dahl go to eat burgers without onions because they can't afford the money for the onions on the burgers. You mentioned Harry's Wagon in Dark Passage, and that was set in San Francisco, which was a real place. And then, oh, there's just all kinds of them. So, there's the diner in Out of the Past, where Paul Valentine goes in at the very beginning and talks to the waitress. It's just a great scene. There are a lot of diners. I mean, those are ones I'm just remembering off the top of my head. But honestly, check out that last issue. I forget what number it is. It's either issue 30 or 31, because Nora's essay is just spectacular. It's actually one of my favorite things that we've ever run in the magazine. It's just so clever and entertaining. And Michael Cronenberg did an amazing job laying it out and finding all the photos of every diner that she mentioned.
So you can get Noir City e-magazine by donating $28 or more to the Film Noir Foundation, which you can do on the contribute page, as we mentioned before. And just make sure that you sign up on our email list, because the magazine comes via email and you download the PDF. So we have to have your email. You have to be on the email list as well as donating to get it. And also Jack Benny has a really great, well, it's kind of a killer's parody. It's called like the Lunch Counter Murder or something. And Dan Duryea was the guest star on it. And at one point, Dennis Day is basically like imitating Dan Duryea, and it is hilarious. So you can actually go on YouTube and you can find it. And also, he originally did it on his radio show, but he also did it on his TV show.
Well, thank you for that, Ann. I am definitely going to look that up. Don't you love it when, we think of these things as like classic and old, and I love when you find stuff that shows how popular these people were back in the day, like that they're doing a Dan Duryea kind of parody at the time. I love that. I love that stuff.
Yeah,
so
well,
I'm definitely going to find that.
Oh, well, there's also from Jack Benny's radio show, there's also an episode where they do a Dark Passage parody for their play, which is really funny. And so no, there's, you'll just, it's like you said, it's just really interesting because you realize that, oh yeah, people were going out and seeing these films. I mean, it's just stuff that people were talking about.
And not just seeing the films, but so much of the writing about film noir after the fact was very, very serious.
Yeah.
Like it was all post-war malaise and emasculated men afraid of women who were in the workforce and the Cold War and all this. But when you do enough research, you realize they were having fun with the genre back then too. They were doing parodies of it, and the villains were mocked, and the popular, like their versions of Saturday Night Live sketches, mocking the popular films of the day. Doesn't mean that those other serious things aren't serious, but it's cool to see the effect that these films had on the popular culture at the time they were released.
Yeah, I mean, because I think we lose that element. Well, because they're so revered now, you know what I mean? So then to go back and see that how they were considered at the time was, it's funny.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, I agree with what you're saying, but that again, I guess because I'm going over edits on the second pass of the book, it's fresh in my mind. But that was a big part of what I wanted to accomplish in writing my, the Dark City film book, was to kind of put the juice back in the films in every way. Like, these are the people who made them. This is what they were doing. This is what they were hoping to achieve. And it's not just the theoretical stuff about what the films are supposed to represent. It's like these are the lives of the people who made them. And there's a lot of humor, and there's a lot of pathos, and there's a lot of bitterness. And, it's a very emotional thing, which I wanted to give back to the films after all this time. So they weren't just, scholarly theses about what they're supposed to represent.
No. Okay, two of my favorite films are Fallen Angel and The File on Thelma Jordan. Both are adapted from stories by Marty Holland. In his commentary on Fallen Angel, Adrian Martin says Marty Holland was a woman. Have you any more information about her? Are there any other, are there any more films adapted from her stories? Bob from the UK.
Okay, Bob from the UK. Good question. Yes, Marty Holland was Mary Holland, and she was a typist at 20th Century Fox, and she really wanted to be a writer, and she was like Dorothy Hughes and several other women writers of the era. She was said, I can write this kind of hard-boiled stuff just as well as the guys. Yeah. And yeah, Fallen Angels, she sold that. She wrote that while she was working at Fox and got a pretty damn good advance for it. I mean, that was kind of a big deal. And it was interesting that she obviously changed her name from Mary to Marty because she thought it was going to help the sales of the book because, she didn't, the sexism of the times, she thought that people wouldn't be that interested in a woman writing this stuff. But then, interestingly, the publishers put a picture of her on the back of the book, like was a glamour shot of her. She was really attractive. She looked kind of like Jean Porter, if you know Jean Porter, Edward Dmytryk's wife. Yeah. Kind of a really perky, attractive blonde. But then as soon as the book went to paperback, they stopped putting pictures of her on the books. And then it was kind of a secret that Marty Holland was actually a woman. And then, yes, she wrote File on Thelma Jordan, and Ketty Frings, another woman, wrote the screenplay for that. And there was a book, I think it was, or a screenplay that was going to be made called, I think it was called The Glass Heart. And it kind of knocked around Hollywood for a number of years with different people attached to it. I know Robert Cummings was one of the people that was going to make it. And it never happened. I don't really know why. And then she kind of just disappeared. She was involved in the Mystery Writers of America. She was the secretary for the Mystery Writers of America. At the time, W.R. Burnett was the president and Raymond Chandler was the vice president. And Marty Holland was the secretary. So she was running with some, the big time boys. And then she kind of fell off the face of the earth, I guess. And much later on, an unpublished work of hers called Baby Godiva was found and published. And I have not read it, but my colleague Woody Hout, who knows everything about hard-boiled fiction, said it was really, really good. That it was like an early kind of feminist hard-boiled story that he had great respect for and reverence. So I'm going to track that down one of these days and read it. But that's what I know about Mary Holland, Mary/Marty Holland.
That's a lot. You know a lot. Okay. I'm fascinated by, excuse me, I'm fascinated by license holders with registration information, car owner name and address inside cars, and how this available information allows plot advancement. It's used twice in The Big Sleep. Any other noir films where this plot device is used, and is it used often in Private Dick noir films?
This was just really common back in the day. You have to keep your driver's, your registration in the car.
Yeah.
I mean, it was cool that they were always in that little plastic thing that was attached to the visor that would flip down. That was cool. But a noir where this figures prominently? I just watched it last night, Anne. What? Better Call Saul. Your favorite, Better Call Saul, where Ignacio, the guy dealing the pills, gets the guys off the driver's registration. He gets the guy's home address that he's dealing the pills with, and then he goes and robs his house, and it was like, what? Well, I said that just to impress you that I actually am watching the show and loving it, I'll have you know.
I'm so glad.
I come on, Bob Odenkirk is the best, the best. I don't go in. I'm watching the show, and at the end, because I'm still in season 1. I haven't even finished season 1. Sorry, this is a weird digression from a question about registrations and old cars and stuff. But it's funny because they use the exact same thing this fellow's talking about.
Yeah.
Like, how does it fit in the plot? It was still being used as recently as this episode of Better Call Saul. But there are scenes in that series that are like some of the best things I've ever seen on TV. And it's mostly when they just turn Bob Odenkirk loose and just let him run his scams on people. And when he hooks Kim into that first scam in the bar where they take, they kind of rip off that businessman, that's as good as it gets. I mean, it's fantastic. Yes. Love it.
Oh, I can't wait for you to see more. Okay. And then, so that was from Veda. And then she also asked.
Not Mildred Pierce's Veda.
Not that Veda, a different Veda. I know, but it cracked me up when I saw her name. When I first saw His Kind of Woman years ago, I loved it. I quickly forgot the title and remembered it as the Low Ceiling movie because of its camera angles. Ceilings aside, I consider it noir-kitsch. Vincent Price is hilarious. Do you know of any other noir-kitsch movies, or do you consider this film noir a satire or a noir satire?
Well, there are obvious ones that we have talked about on previous installments where it's like noir comedy, like Unfaithfully Yours. And of course, The Good Humor Man is almost slapsticky, but based on a noir story that was then converted into comedy by Frank Tashlin. Back in the classic era, I don't really know. I just think what's interesting about His Kind of Woman is that it was not conceived as that.
Right.
There are a lot of noir films where you can see the humor built into it. In some respects, I think The Dark Corner, the 1946 Fox film, has a certain air of self-parody about it. Like they knew that this is already somewhat of a cliche, and it was still 1946. And there's just something about the way the way Henry Hathaway stages the scenes, and B, the fact that it was assembled from so many obvious influences. Like Clifton Webb is basically playing the same character he played in Laura. Like, let's do that again, right? And so it has this kind of kitschy feel to it. But His Kind of Woman was not supposed to be kitschy. It just turned out that way in the end because of Vincent Price. And because of how excessive the movie got versus how low-key Mitchum plays everything. It becomes kind of funny. Like, what's going to happen to this guy next, And he's like, oh, man, you got to be kidding me. They're going to, beat me up again. Oh, my God. I wish I was thinking more clearly, but there are a number of instances. I'll just say this about that question. If you're really laughing at the film, it doesn't mean that it's dated. There's a good possibility that the filmmakers knew they were being funny in the first place.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, look at, we've talked about this before, but when you look at DOA, I mean, parts of that are deadly serious and parts of that are like a Roadrunner cartoon.
Yeah.
And it's weirdly integrated. Like it doesn't always work as far as I'm concerned, but conceptually it's like one of the great noirs ever. But then there's, it's played at such a breakneck speed that you could almost find it a cartoon.
Yeah. Okay. What is your favorite film noir parody? If no attribution, we'll skip this one. Emily from Sacramento.
Well, it's Unfaithfully Yours, I think.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it just, I'm helpless when I watch that. I crack up because I love Preston Sturges, and to have Preston Sturges finally, you know, move into noir terrain is like,
Yeah.
this is, and it's just so, and then you laugh because you can't believe you're laughing at it, because it's like, this is it, the audacity of making a movie in which a guy is plotting a murder and they get comedy out of it, like slapstick comedy at times out of it is like, I can't believe I'm laughing at this, but it's really, really funny.
Well, I think the interesting thing too is because you have the scene, because for people who haven't seen it, the premise of the film is this man the conductor is thinking that his wife is cheating on him. So he's conducting 3 pieces of music over the course of the film. And so like in the first one, like his fantasy is that he forgives her. He's going to be magnanimous. You know, and the second one is that he's going to kill himself. It's a dramatic gesture. And the third one is he's going to murder her. And the sequence where he murders her is extremely, like the scene he murders her is really, really brutal. I mean, like stunningly brutal, like shockingly brutal. And then, so after he's finished conducting these pieces, of course he decides he's going to go with the killer option, you know. And then it's hilarious because of course he has this incredibly elaborate scheme to kill her, which in no way could actually work in real life. And so and it's great because Sturges is he's humiliating the character for wanting to kill his wife. I mean, it's like this punishment of him thinking that way in the first place, almost. So you just get to see him completely brought to ground. And it's hilarious.
And it's great casting because Rex Harrison is perfect for that. The snooty arrogance that he has, to see him humiliated is wonderful. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I know, it really is, and that's why it works so well. Okay, so there's a sad story of the 7th victims, Gene Brooks, who sank into obscurity after leaving RKO, and whose life after Hollywood was only rediscovered through investigative efforts many decades after her death. And Millicent Patrick, who designed The Creature from the Black Lagoon, who was never credited and was virtually forgotten until a recent book about her came out. Are there any other classic noir actors, actresses, or filmmakers who have similarly disappeared and whose fate you wish you could be brought to light?
I don't know if the end of that question was that. I don't quite get it, but yeah, Gene Brooks was a very sad story, and I don't know how many people know that she was not named Jean Brooks. I can't remember her real name, but the Brooks is from Richard Brooks because she was married to writer-director Richard Brooks, and that's when she took his, oh, of course, I know what her real name is. It's Gene Kelly. And that is one of the reasons why, I'm not saying that's why she married Richard Brooks, but it was a good thing that she did because she needed to have a different name once Gene Kelly hit big at MGM. And yes, they had a tumultuous and brief marriage, and her career, yeah, she was an alcoholic. She became an alcoholic, and I know that she died not far from here in Richmond, California, you know, just up the road from where I am right now. That was sad. And all I can say about this question is that there are innumerable sad stories like this in Hollywood that I would love to. I don't know if they're asking would I like to change their real life fate, or that I'd like to see their tragedy immortalized in film.
Actually, she's asking if there are any classic noir actors or actresses or filmmakers who, or that people would know about them, I guess.
I don't know. This one, I mean, there's so many. I don't know why I'm thinking about Gail Russell right now, but
well,
I mean,
that's
Gail
what popped
Russell
in my head too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so tragic because she always played like the angel of redemption in her movies, you know.
Oh.
The way I look at Gail Russell is like if Colleen Gray had died on a pile of empty vodka bottles in an apartment in Hollywood, you know, oh my God, what a tragedy. And that's how Gail Russell died, you know.
Yeah.
And she was involved in a lot of these people were involved in incidents of vehicular mayhem
Yeah.
that haunted them and led to their alcoholism. Like Helen Walker, who was a really terrific actress. You know, she played Lilith Ritter, the doctor in Nightmare Alley. She was in Call Northside 777, and a bunch of other movies. And, you know, she was just a terrific actress. She was in The Big Combo, and a lot of other things that aren't noir. But you know, she had that kind of incident in her life that she never really recovered from. It just led to her drinking and you know, that was it. I mean, if you don't have somebody, if you don't have the, you know, now we call them the support group or the support network or something. And it's amazing that you can be that successful in Hollywood and not have that support group, you know, but it happens, man. Gail Russell didn't have it. Barbara Payton didn't have it. Helen Walker didn't have it. You know, you're just kind of on your own, and not everybody survives. It is tragic.
Yeah, and also I just think, you know, Hollywood is a very, very brutal place, and I think especially for women, I think that's still true. And you know, and I think also if you already have any kind of underlying problems, that's got to be one of just the worst places to go to.
Well, in terms of actors, Anne, no offense to actors, but they're all insecure. I mean, actors are incredibly insecure.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got that strike against you going in. And it's unfair, as you say, with women because, you know, and I talked about this in the foreword I wrote to the Veronica Lake autobiography, that, you know, she didn't get the pass that guys got for being an alcoholic and a substance abuser and all that, because it just, with guys, it's part of the legend, you know? And when I read her autobiography, she struck me, the person she most reminded me of was Sterling Hayden. Like, they had a lot of the same character traits, a lot of the same insecurities, and they were both big boozers. And, you know, I know what Hayden's substances were, but I'm not sure exactly what Veronica Lake was into when it came to her substance abuse. But, you know, everybody laughs and says, oh man, that Hayden, he's a larger than life character. And everybody says, oh, that poor pitiful Veronica Lake. It was, you know, does that, and like, you know, she handled it as she chose to handle it up until she died.
Yeah.
You know, with no apologies or anything, but she hadn't, women don't get that break. And then when they're really, as you say, it's a brutal town, and to survive, women especially have to be super tough. Like Stanwyck and Joan Crawford and Ida Lupino, they've got to be really tough. And then they run the risk of being like, oh, she's like a bitch, you know, she's horrible, you know? And it's like, really? It's such a ludicrous double standard.
Okay, and so that's from Andy in LA, who also asks, what did you think of Mank, in particular, the bending of his political inclinations from leaning conservative in real life to taking a decidedly pro-union and progressive stand in the movie, culminating the brazen and drunken takedown of Hearst, LB Mayer, etc. Any opinions from his grandson and your TCM co-host, Ben?
Well, I doubt Ben is watching this. So I didn't like it. I did not like Mank. I just, and I love David Fincher. I like his movies. I like almost all of his movies. But this one just it just rubbed me the wrong way. And largely it was because of the screenplay. And I know that Fincher's father wrote the screenplay, and it was like a thing that he really wanted to direct this to honor his dad, which I can totally understand. But I actually didn't think it was a very good screenplay. And it just wore me out, you know, and it was like, it was tough. I didn't enjoy the film. So I'm going to leave it at that. You know, that's where I'm going to leave it.
We'll leave it there. I think Phil Karlson's The Scarface Mob, also known as the 1959 pilot for The Untouchables, is one of the best films he ever directed. Any chance of it turning up at Noir City or on Noir Alley? And that is from Doug.
Okay, Doug. Yeah, it is a good film, and we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it doesn't get a lot of. It's interesting that Doug brings that up, because that film does not get a lot of love, and it's pretty good, and it's a great Neville Brand performance playing Al Capone. We'll see. I do have a couple of Phil Karlson. At least I know that I'm going to be showing the Brothers Rico pretty soon in the spring on Noir Alley. The Scarface Mob is not coming up this year, but that's a good one. Yeah, I like the film, and I'm now. Thank you, Doug. You've like kind of nudged it onto my radar again to think about showing that, and like how we can fit that into some kind of thematic thing maybe. But if it does pop up, I'm even trying to remember what studio it was that released that film. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't have my stuff around here. I'm wondering if that was Columbia or I don't know. Wasn't that? I think that might have been a Desilu production, or wasn't The Untouchables a Desilu production? Anyway, yes, I will show it if it is available. I'll say that.
Because it's a Phil Karlson I haven't seen, so I would like to see it.
Yep, it's good.
Of all the best known noirs, which sparked the hottest off-camera romance between its stars? And that is from Joe in Los Angeles.
Joe, have you ever heard of these two? Have you ever heard of these two performers, Joe, named Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall? I don't know if Joe is, if he's only considering a romance, you know, as a thing, like a sexual affair thing that happened. But, you know, that was a pretty hot thing that led to probably one of the, you know, the great Hollywood marriages of all time. So, yeah, I would say, well, the trick here is, do you consider To Have and Have Not to be a film noir? Because, you know, if you don't, then they didn't meet making a film noir, but then they certainly made 3 after that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that, and leave it there.
I think it's a great answer. What can I say?
I think it would be Bogart and Bacall, right?
Yeah. And I remember I was watching that in the theater. I think, it was the Grand Illusion, which is this little tiny theater in Seattle. You know, and I was just like looking at Bogart, looking at Bacall, and he looked like such a dope. I mean, he was just so besotted with her, you know, and it's quite amazing to think of, you know, a married couple having that captured in time.
Yeah.
You know, forever. Like that'll always be there, and people will always see it. And because, I mean, when you watch the film, it's just, I mean, I've seen like a lot of obviously romantic films, everybody has, but I mean, you can tell he was really in love with her. Like it's not even like, yeah, it's incredible. It really is.
Now, this isn't noir, but Anne, you have inspired me by what you've just said to note this, because I just recorded some stuff for TCM. I won't delve into what the whole purpose of it was, but where I'm talking about a couple of Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy movies. And what you're talking about, like having that captured on film, and the spark of romance sort of immortalized, because Hepburn and Tracy, the first film they made together was Woman of the Year in 1942. And I really admire and appreciate Katharine Hepburn, but I'm not a huge Katharine Hepburn fan, like she's not the one that makes my motor run, let's say.
Yeah.
But she is so unbelievably sexy in Woman of the Year. And like, that's the film where she met Spencer Tracy. And you can feel it. Like there are scenes in the first half of that movie where they're like getting together. It's like, this is happening. I mean, this is not acting. This is happening. And then we also talked about Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which was the last film they made, and the last film that Spencer Tracy made. And there's a moment at the end of that film where he professes his love for her, and they look at each other with, and she has these tears in her eyes. And it is, I'm sorry, I know Guess Who's Coming to Dinner is a big message film and all that, but that film exists for that moment.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that their relationship all through that film is incredible, because they really seem like a couple that's been married a really long time. And also there's something about Spencer Tracy in that film.
Although they were never actually married.
Even though they were never actually married, but they were together,
Yeah,
and he very much reminds me of my dad in that film. He really does. There's something about him in that film that's just really similar to the way that my dad was.
And she loved him so much, and propped him up through the making of that movie. He could barely function. I mean, he was dying.
Yeah.
And she knew that was going to be his last hurrah. And he has that big monologue to end the movie. And she just stands there and looks at him admiringly through the whole thing. And normally I would hate that kind of stuff. But it works so beautifully. Not as a film, I don't think, but as a tribute to them.
Yeah.
It's just fabulous.
Yeah, and just one more shout out to great off-screen, on-screen couples, because I still think it may be the sexiest film I've ever seen was Flesh and the Devil.
Oh, okay.
With Greta Garbo and John Gilbert. And just the scene in the church is just, I'll just leave it. We'll just say that she's inappropriate during communion, and it is like one of the sexiest things I've ever seen. Okay, so last question, and this is from Jennifer. So I'll read the question and then I'll give a little backstory to it. I'm writing to ask about a film that I posted about on our Facebook page called All My Sons with Edward G. Robinson and Burt Lancaster. I've taken some heat on whether or not this film is considered noir. I would appreciate some insight. Thank you.
It is noir stained. There is no question about that. I mean, it's an Arthur Miller play turned into a film, and because it was made in 1949, it looks very much like a film noir. Burt Lancaster and Edward G. Robinson, kind of echoes of all the noir stuff they were doing at the time. And yeah, it's a really great play, and it has a lot of resonance, I think, for modern audiences. In fact, little bit of scoop here, it's one of the films that I have programmed for the Noir City Film Festival this year. And I don't know that we're going to be able to show it because it's a Universal film, and I don't think Universal is doing streaming stuff now. So I don't think we're going to get to show it. But what's this woman's name who submitted this?
Jennifer.
Jennifer, don't let anybody give you any guff about this not being a film noir. I think it qualifies as a stage play whose cinematic adaptation is clearly under the influence of the film noir movement. Yeah, and Chester Erskine, who wrote the adaptation and directed it, you know, he was involved in a few other pretty good noir. He wrote the script for Angel Face. I know that's a favorite of yours, Anne. Yeah. Anyway, I like that movie very much. We got it out of mothballs a few years ago and showed it in Los Angeles at the Noir City Film Festival, and it kind of knocked the audience back a little bit. I could say other things about it, but it would be spoiling it. I just think if it shows up any place where you have a chance to watch it, you really should, because it's powerful, and it has a really, really good cast. So there you go.
All right. So I just want to, so that question actually came from someone had messages on Facebook, and I don't think she actually intended it as an Ask Eddie question. I think she just was curious about the question, but I just wanted to bring up so people know that, so any questions that you would like for Eddie to answer, this is sort of the format for that, because like I can answer some questions and I always say, I don't know if you want my opinion, but this is my opinion about something. So anyway, now we have Ask Eddie, and the way that you get your questions onto our program is subscribe to our newsletter, and you can do that just on filmnoirfoundation.org. There's an email sign up, and then we do a newsletter every month, and that's when we solicit the questions from our email subscribers. So subscribe and you can get your questions answered, because we don't pick them up from comments like when we're streaming or on Twitter or anything, because this is sort of, it's just, we got to wrangle it.
because I don't know if a lot of these people know, but I try to stay off social media as much as possible. You know, I'm trying to be as much of a Luddite these days as I can possibly be, because it's a little different now. We'll see if things change in 2021. Social media was such a combative catastrophe for the last 4 years that I just got tired of being on social media. We'll see if anything changes, and I feel like going back on and finding some of these comments and things and answering questions that way. But as Anne says, submit it through the proper channels, and we'll get them answered. Okay.
Okay, that's it. That was our last question.
Oh, fantastic! We actually kind of did this one in just a little bit over an hour this time.
Yeah, not an hour and a half. I'm very happy.
Okay, that's fantastic. But of course, if people have submitted a question and it wasn't on this show, that's just because you know, we had this backlog, but it doesn't mean we're not going to get to your questions.
Yeah, so we're up to date to all the questions that were from our last solicitation of questions. So we are done with those. But if you send some, because we've done 3 of these this month, those questions are actually for February. So because we sent out an announcement and at the same time solicit questions. So, and we've done that a couple times already this month, but those questions are already in place for February. So.
Okay. Very, very good. Okay. So we're letting people off a little easier this time. I want to give a quick shout out. Okay. To a lovely woman named Laura Stocker, who I've known for a few years just in passing through TCM. But this past summer, one of the highlights of my year was hosting this thing on TCM, which was a spotlight thing on jazz and film. And I got to host a bunch of jazz related films was wonderful co-hosts who were musicians largely. And Laura did these beautiful illustrations for social media to promote the series. And she sent me these wonderful prints that were for each night of that festival. And I haven't had a chance to thank her personally, so I'm doing this on social media, because obviously if you're a jazz fan, you know that these are all sort of based on the old Blue Note jazz LPs. And they're just so fabulous. And she did such a beautiful job with these. And she sent me the whole set of every night that we did this. And this was the jazz noir night that I did with my pal Monty Alexander, the jazz pianist. And it was all just great, you know. So I got to figure out how I'm going to frame all these and put them up, because I just absolutely love this stuff. And I think she did such a beautiful job.
They're beautiful
with these illustrations. And, you know, I have a lot of those, you know, that Blue Note vinyl. And that was just such a cool concept that she came up with. And I thank you, Laura, if you happen to be watching. I really appreciated your doing that, because these don't exist. She printed these just for me. So that was really sweet.
Yeah, that was really nice.
Yeah.
What a lovely thing to do.
There are a lot of great fans out there. You know, come on, who knows an idiot movie fan? Well, yeah, okay. There are guys. There are super opinionated guys who are like, you know, my way or the highway with the attitude. I get that, but by and large, people who love movies are okay. They're pretty cool. Not as cool as people who love books. I have to admit, not as cool as people who love books, but not bad. Not bad at all. Okay, Anne, I think we're done then.
We're done. So we will be back in February. Yeah, we'll be back in February. So as soon as we have the date set, I will post that on social media so people know when to expect us next.
Beautiful. And my apologies go out to all the Allurophiles out there who were waiting for cat appearances
in
the show tonight, but they didn't get any. Our apologies. We'll make sure next time. I'm going to make a vow. Next time Tizzy will make an appearance, she'll be right here, and she'll have to be in my hands, because there is no way that you're going to see her otherwise. I have to be holding her, but she is just cute as could be. So I promise that she'll make an appearance.
Okay. I'm excited. I can't wait to see her.
Okay. And you're the greatest. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
And we'll see everybody next month.
See you in February.